Wendy, I'm excited to have a conversation with you to share with the world around branding, because we had a conversation earlier and said we got to record this. Would you just start by telling people a little bit about you and your wonderful business, and then we'll dig into our conversation and views on branding for micro business, the really small guys.
Sounds great, Martin. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited as well. I am the founder of Hummingbird Creative Group. We are a creative services branding agency located in Cary, North Carolina. I started the business in '95, so we're in our 23rd year, which is very exciting. And we help build business value through better branding. So we bring the idea of branding down from big business and big agency world and bring some of those concepts to smaller and mid-sized businesses.
Excellent, excellent. And one of the pieces in the teaching from Murphy DiManio statewide I experienced is many of the really tiny, just getting started people are using a concept of branding to hide behind a logo. And what I'm telling them when I meet them is, first of all, branding is built by Homo sapiens, identifying with other Homo sapiens, earning the right to associate it with an appropriate logo or something else. And what I found is so many are they're hiding behind, oh, I got the logo and everything. Now I'm going to hide behind this little logo. And then I don't really want to be out there. And years ago, there was a bed and breakfast who said, I want to be as successful as Chloe in Big Mill, who really got this idea and brought herself forward. And I said, well, you need to come forward or sell your business, because they wanted to hide behind a little logo without the revenue or resources to build it up. And that's why I thought it'd be a good discussion, because in some ways, mine sounds at times like I'm against branding. And it's quite contrary. It's people buy from people. Then it's amplified. So I'll throw it over to you to comment on, disagree, or take it from there.
So you are absolutely right. And this is the conversation that I love to have. So Jeff Bezos with Amazon says something like, branding is what people are saying about you when you're not listening. And that is what branding is. Branding is supported by things like logo and corporate identity and graphics and messaging. But the brand is really what you're putting out there and what people are saying about you when you have no idea that they're even talking about you. What do they say about your company? And it is all about the culture and the people. And then from that, your graphics, your logo should reflect that in a great way. But you certainly can't hide behind that logo and think that that's it. And I see that all the time. We get a lot of small businesses that come to us and say, I want a brand, I want a logo, I want a website, but they haven't thought about what the company culture is going to be. They haven't thought about their competition and their target market and how to speak to the market in a unique way. And that's really what it's all about. The logo is just a supporting piece of that. So you're absolutely right.
Well, thank you. I didn't know if this was going to be a discussion or argument. But the piece of it is how are you going to bring the people? How are you going to identify out front? And it doesn't always mean it has to be the exact owner, but how are we going to humanize it? And that's what built over the years of social media. The thing that interests me is one of the competitive advantages of a micro business is we can be connected to content that's local and human beings that can be met and seen at a personal level. And I see the large brands pretending to be it, like the Walmart local store. Like someone's going, oh, that must be local now. But the smaller guy, the local guy, isn't capitalizing on their competitive advantage of humanizing, personalizing, and building out the story of them. What can they own? What can they do? I mean, did they really just do this because they needed cash and had nothing else to do? It's usually not the story. There's a richer piece there. And like you said, how does it sum up with the competition? How does it compare to them? What is the personas we're speaking to? And I want to say it takes some courage in this area. I tell people having your own business is the best personal development work you can do, because any unresolved issues from your childhood will probably be in your face that you have to now push through to get yourself out there. And I think that's a good thing. So anything to add with that?
Sure. So you're so right about the owning a small business thing. I can certainly relate to some childhood memories popping up there. But you mentioned the word personas, and I think that is so important. We have people asking us, well, what should my message be? I want to do social media. How should I interact on social media? And personas are a great tool for people to use to help figure some of that out. We encourage clients to think about the persona of their business as well as the personas of their target customers. And when you think about, like, when you're at a dinner party or you're out at a networking event, you have your personality and other people have their personalities, and you have to figure out how to interact your persona with another persona. And the people who have this figured out the best are good salespeople, right? Mm-hmm. They know how to hold a conversation with someone, and they figure out the persona, and they figure out how to speak to that person. And that's what you're trying to do with branding. You're saying, okay, we know we're this persona. This is our culture. This is what we're trying to do. And then here's the persona of our target market. So how do we speak in a language that brings our offering to that target market in a way that they really understand it? So personas are a great tool and a great way to start to figure out the voice and the character of the company and how you're going to build a brand vocabulary, per se, to talk to the target markets.
And I think you brought up a really important piece about the culture. And there's some businesses that are so new and young, they don't know what their culture is because they're right in the midst of it. And some of my pieces of that is let's either talk to some of our early customers and find out, how do they view us? Because brand lives in the customer's mind, not in my conversation. How are they viewing us? And then how do we adjust to, is that what we want to be projecting? Is that how we want to be projecting? And is there adjustment? And if they don't even have customers, my view is just pick something to own as what you're working on. There's a group that just won a second place contest in a kind of a crowdfunding Shark Tank thing, and they have a pimento cheese product, and their church mission work is so tied into who they are. I told them if somebody doesn't like that, then they're not their customer. That's a core cultural piece of them. The family's done mission work and other things. It's really core in their town for that. Let's own it, because we've really moved from the broadcast world to the narrowcast quite a while ago, and not everyone got the memo yet.
So the piece of what you're saying that's so important is this whole listening to the customer, right? Knowing who the customer is and listening to them. And we call that insights in agency world. And so asking your customer questions about why they buy, why they came to you, what they feel like you do different. That's so important. So if you have an existing business, that's the perfect place to get started. And if you have a third party do that, you'll learn even more. And you might learn some of the negative things too, which can help you improve. And so I highly recommend it. And then, like you said, if you don't already have customers, I'm just telling people, flip the switch. So, you can sit in a room and have a conversation about who you want the business to be, what you want it to do, what you're creating. Flip the switch and say, I want the customer to believe this. I want the customer to think this. I want the customer to feel this. I want the customer to react in this way or have this feeling about us, and get out of your own head, because that's where it really gets hard. You get in your own head and you forget that brand is the perception that someone else has. So how are you going to build that perception? And then I love what you said about, pick a horse and ride it, or pick a direction and just do it. Right. So many people just won't pick, they're going to try a million different things and see what sticks. Go for it. Pick what you want that voice to be, how you want to be perceived, and live it as best as you possibly can. I've had a business for 23 years, and vision is an interesting thing, and culture is an interesting thing. And the people around you come and go, and you have to find a way to stay clear with where your path is going. Whether it's customers that come and go or your team that changes, picking that direction that you want to go and staying true to it is so important to your brand. It is what will create that consistent, sustainable brand over time.
And the thing is we have to take times and reevaluate. I mean, I did not start teaching small businesses social media. It was something where this is what they need now to learn, and then what do they need next to understand it. Another piece on the persona that I found is the unwillingness, the idea of I want everyone to want my product. And the other thing is not really committing to a persona because they don't think they have the resources to really identify some finite personas. And an interesting phenomenon is I just started working with them and say, pick something, because if you're wrong, you'll know it quicker than if you don't commit to something. And I give the example of, I've had people say, well, I'm not a musician and I'm trying to learn music a little now. And I go, well, what about this? And they go, that sounds terrible. Well, you know what terrible is, so we're moving towards the right. So that's a little piece that in the understanding is who is the persona that pays the bills, who do we want next, and who can we not serve that we want to not see us, and pick something, and run with it. And I welcome your views on that, because we've got the persona of the business built on the persona of the people, and the persona people isn't the whining, complaining version of Martin. It's who I'm committed to being for the customer. That's where it comes from, and then from there, we have to start differentiating who are the different channels, who are our customers. So
target market, there's a reason for those words, right? So I'll ask a new client, okay, talk to me about your target market. And they're all over the place. Everybody is their target market, which is what you just talked about, right? Everybody's my target market. Anybody who'll write me a check, they're my target market. So again, to flip that switch and say, okay, who's the perfect customer? That's your target market. You're going to attract all kinds of people who are not your target market. You're going to be able to attract them with no problem. But defining who the right person is helps you in your sales cycle. It helps you when you're out meeting people. It helps you teach your team how to identify good customers. It helps you with your marketing. It certainly can help you financially if you identify the customer that is the most profitable for you as the target customer. But keeping in mind that it is target. It's not everybody. You need a focus. That doesn't mean that you're not going to take business from the person that walks in the door tomorrow because they don't fit. You might not, and you might shouldn't, but you still could. That doesn't mean that you don't have a target market. And so it's committing to a target market and realizing that doesn't mean that those other people aren't going to come, and you're all of a sudden, because you've created a target market and a persona, you're all of a sudden not going to have the business you did before. You're just going to be able to better qualify people faster. And that's a big part of sustainability and creating a good sales plan that can move faster than if you have not identified some of these things through the tools that we're talking about.
I think that's excellent and an important piece with it. And just the big thing is giving your permission, self-permission, to know that some of the people you can't serve. And what will happen is you'll eat up 80% of your time trying to serve them, taking away from the 20% that truly get value and will rave about your product. So when you don't say no to something, you aren't able to really say yes to something as well. And I think that's one of the things I see in the micro business world is, you're right. And it's really scary in the beginning. You may have to take more people in, but you're moving towards, I can't serve this person, I can serve that person, and what occurs. And the joy of small business is that they can adapt quicker to the larger world if they stay connected to their customer than a larger company. I mean, we see the examples. I'm going to just take one of Penny's. You know, I remember my wife walking into the new Penny's and looking around going, where'd my pennies go? Right. And I realized they flushed their base, in my view, for something new. Or Windows 8, in my view, Windows 8, they lost the connection to the customer. They wanted a start button. Don't take that away from them. Or even Snapchat recently seems to have not done any testing with their base from the perspective. Now, I don't know all the stats, but I've met more younger people that are leaving Snapchat than any time before. And I go, I just learned how to use it. No, I learned a little sooner, but you know, I go, well, I'm glad because I don't quite understand the new feature. So the point here is the larger companies can afford to have more disconnect than we can and make sure we're staying connected. And then along with the persona you mentioned is knowing something about your customer beyond your product or service. And that's, to me, key for social selling and anything else. And you know that, Wendy. I can guarantee your best customers, you know, where do they go when they aren't home or work? You know what's important to them. I guarantee if we sat down, you could even have a hint. Do they have dogs or cats? Do they prefer? And because you move into their world to see out their eyes, and that to me is one of the competitive advantages a small business can do, but isn't always listening enough for it.
Right. And listening is the key to that. And remembering to ask the questions and get to know the customer. You said something earlier that I wanted to come back around to, and it was around change and our ability to change over time. And then you came around to Snapchat and some of these brands like JCPenney's that's really changed over time, and you question whether they're listening to the customer or not. Obviously, change is a part of any business that is going to be around for a long time. And so brands are going to need to change. The key for small business, I think, really is this listening, because most small business owners can't afford to have the big engines of all analytics or the time to analyze all of the data coming into them to know what changes they need to make. But I think it's important to realize that a brand does change. And so, you know, when I came into beginning my business, I came in as a young designer thinking that you create a logo and it's going to stay the same for forever. You know, it's never going to change. A trend we're seeing now all over the place, especially because icons have become so important and technology is so different, is you not only see logos changing, but you see them in many different shapes and forms and all kinds of stuff. And this is a reflection of the change that we have to make on a pretty regular basis in business now. You know, a new technology platform comes out, your graphics have to adapt to that. Your message to the target market that you're trying to reach through that platform may need to be different than on another platform. Just down to social selling, the message that you might share on Facebook may be very, very different than the message that you need to share on LinkedIn for the same brand, for the same idea, but you're reaching a different demographic, or you've got a different persona or a different cultural need on a different platform. So I think this this desire to be consistent, which was really, really close to my heart for a very long time. Change has created a new world where, yes, consistency is important at a certain level, but we also have to adapt. We have to adapt message. We have to adapt graphics. We have to adapt the brand over time and what that means. And I think for micro businesses especially, you are learning every day as you go that things are different about your brand than maybe they were 6 months ago or a year ago. Certainly very different than 5 years ago. You know, every time 5 years go by, I look back and say, wow, how different my business is today than it was 5 years ago. So we have to continuously being adapting and changing. And I think when you use tools like personas and you continue to talk to your customers and ask for insights about what makes you unique, what your differentiation is against your competitors, and you keep looking at your competitors as they change over time, then you're going to realize how your brand is changing and you're not going to get stuck. Which I think is a dilemma, really getting stuck in the old way of doing things and not realizing that everything around you is changing. As a micro business, you can get so just laser focused on the things that you do every day and not realize what's changing around you. So I think that's really super important what you touched on with that.
Yeah, I love that we're seeing the brands shifting to speak to the audience, because I'll see the brand on Snapchat looking very different than it might be on LinkedIn or on the YouTube channel even. Absolutely. And understanding where it is. And for the micro business, the question we really need to ask is, where are those customers engaging online and on the ground? I mean, there's so many things where I'll go, don't lose track of good old referral marketing and meeting people and personalizing and showing up, in person as well, to amplify the things on the web. If that's where your customer wants to meet you in a coffee shop, it's not Facebook, it's the coffee shop, right, where they want. So I think these are real critical. And I really believe that stories and authentic personalization is not going to go away very soon, because I think it's core to the human's DNA, but we do need to be paying attention more to this idea of the customer facing, the customer's doing more research. Are we going to give them content they'll trust on their research journey to us? Or are we going to wait until they've already made their decision and then they're just price hunting, at the last? And so that's one other thing in the branding I wanted to talk a little bit about is what we call the buyer's journey in the social media class. Is how do we start, learning as a small business? How do we build that rapport before they even realize they need us? And I know that's something core to you working with clients as well.
Yeah, the customer journey is another great tool or great exercise to go through. It also can really help clarify the different collateral pieces you need at different parts of the sales cycle, the different places that you need to be. You mentioned having your brand a certain way on Snapchat versus Facebook versus LinkedIn. A lot of people think they need to be everywhere, and their customer isn't everywhere. And so, my B2B manufacturing companies need to have more of a LinkedIn strategy than perhaps a Facebook strategy. That's not to say they don't need to have a page on Facebook and have a presence to show their culture, but where they're going to get their business and where their main persona is going to be is different. And so really analyzing that buyer journey, and also, I guess the bigger piece of the buyer journey that's so important is how you lead somebody to the sale. right? And so, starting out when you're first engaging, somebody is trying to find out about you, what can they find? And then as they're moving into, really needing your services, what are you putting out there to help them make the decision? And then at the time that they're ready to make the decision, how are you communicating with them to make sure that they have the confidence? And then very importantly, which a lot of people don't talk about, is how you continue to have loyalty after the sale, which is a big part of the buyer journey. After you have sold to someone, how do you maintain them as a customer or get them to come back and buy something else? So analyzing each of those areas of the buying cycle and saying, okay, what do we need to say at this point in time? What does our brand need to be about here? And what tools do we need to give that buyer to help them make a decision at each phase is really a way to stay focused and keep yourself from kind of being all over the place. Especially as a micro business, you can spin your wheels a lot coming up with marketing materials and collateral materials just because someone says you need a white paper. Well, when are you going to use that white paper? Where in the buyer's journey does it make sense for you to have a white paper? And if you can't figure that out, maybe you don't need to spend your time working on a white paper. So, a lot of people kind of come at it more tactically. Well, I need a website and I need a brochure and I need a white paper and I need this and I need that. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And they can spend all kinds of time developing all this stuff, but they don't know when to use it. They don't know how to get somebody through the sales cycle to actually close and become a loyal customer. And so taking the time to do that from a strategic standpoint can really save you a lot of time from developing materials you don't need or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not being able to sell and get the job done.
Excellent. One more thing I wanted to bring up that I think's evolved and over time, because you've been in the field long enough to see it, is what I call how people value this secondary validation, the review on Amazon, the review on the website. Many people seem to be trusting what anonymous people have to say over their marketing material and other content. And it's something I know your group is paid attention to, but I think it's something to realize we're in the world where there are people like myself. I'm a Google local guide and I have over 1,000 reviews, and I tell little businesses when I come in, I just want you to know I'm a local guide. I'm looking forward to giving you guys a great review because I want them to have a chance to do something well. And
right.
Now it's happening. I just got some food the other night and they brought the owner and someone else out to meet me, and they got that someone like me can outrank them doing a paid ad somewhere, but they also need to understand how to handle the complaints with it and other things, because they could just be hostage to anyone threatening to write a bad review. And I think this is another area for the micro business, is to learn to embrace this, learn to face those ugly comments, and learn to stand up and respond in a way that will actually give them more credibility than a check would, writing a large check. So I want to add that in because I think that's all part of this journey for them.
Well, obviously, your reputation online is a big part of your brand these days. I mean, it's nothing that we can run from. It's nothing that, you can just decide you're not going to pay attention to. I'm impressed that you tell people that you're a local guide and give them the opportunity to know that. That's awesome, Martin, because it really is important, and it really can be priceless for them online to make a good impression on someone like you and get that local guide kind of review online. We work with a lot of different kinds of businesses, and probably the toughest one to navigate when it comes to reputation management is healthcare. Probably other than telecom. Those might be the two. And, you know, anyone who works on the front line serving people in a retail kind of manner is going to have some challenges from time to time online with their reputation. So a few things to think about with that. One is pay attention, watch it, because there are so many people writing reviews online. And if you're not watching it, your reputation can suffer so fast. Secondly, if you do see something negative, it actually is a great opportunity to reinforce a brand. It is the perfect opportunity to reinforce a brand in the sense that someone has shared with you that they were unhappy and why they were unhappy. And you can write a really good response to that, that shows some culture, that shows that you care, that shows some brand message if you have that opportunity. But the bigger piece of it, and I work with quite a few clients on this, is it gives you the opportunity to humanize it again. And, pick up a telephone and call somebody and be humble. And, whether the customer is always right or not, which I grew up in a small family business and the customer was always right no matter what. Even if that's not your state of mind, call them up and apologize and talk about the problem and take something away from it to improve your brand. And if you ask the person, they'll take that bad review down or they'll adjust it because you have really worked with them and shown them that you care and you've humanized your brand. And so I see a great opportunity, even when there's a negative review or a negative piece of reputation management that happens, it gives you that opportunity to have a touch point once again, which you wouldn't have had otherwise. If that person hadn't said something, they might never come back and you'd never know it. So there is a flip side to all this negative that is a positive, and that is that and that you can learn something from it, possibly correct it, and possibly have a more engaged customer than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. And also want to add, when I mentioned the small business, I'm a local guide and reviewing it. I'm also very careful that they know I won't take any extras or anything else. I just want to give them a heads up to do their best. I'm looking for it in the mom and pop shops to say, I'm going to review you and want to know and let them bring it forward on it. But the key thing you brought up is just we're all in the same playing field. Transparency is here for all of us, if we like it or not. And we need to learn how to surf because we can't control the ocean like we thought we could in the old day, but I'm not sure we even did then. And so this was a great, I really wanted to have this conversation with you because I want to say years ago, I bought in business that branding was everything, and it represented in my head more logos and everything out front, that it was something. And I went, wait a second, people wouldn't trust, Nike if there weren't athletes that were wearing the shoes.
That's right.
We wouldn't be buying Pepsi if a lot of people that we liked didn't hold the can up. And I realized I misunderstood the fundamentals of branding as I became more of a success coach and working with people. I'm going, this isn't what works. This is something that's a byproduct of years of personalization, of good value, of communicating your wins and delivering the return on investment for customers, not the beginning place. And that's why I really wanted to have this with you because, we're out there. We both have a passion for the importance of entrepreneurship, small business, and how it brings life to a community and our society. And I believe small business is the backbone of America. All the ideas begin and work their way up from there. So I want to let you in with closing comments on this, anything you want, and then how they can reach you as well. It's been such a joy to every time I get to work with you.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity, Martin. And I think, of everything that we've said, just being strategic, being transparent, understanding what the customers have to say about your business, and taking insight away from that, and picking a direction and focusing and staying true to it. All of that's so important. We, focus on helping companies really understand, and presidents and owners of companies really understand how important and valuable it is to build a sustainable brand. More than even the bottom line value, but the value to the business, and the value to the reputation, which is what is going to sustain the business forever. So I'd say, that's kind of the philosophy that I'm coming to the table with. Like you said, I'm Wendy Coulter. I'm CEO and president of Hummingbird Creative Group in Cary, North Carolina. Our website is www.hummingbird-creative.com. And I'm on all the social media platforms. I'm pretty easy to find. And I just so appreciate all the opportunities you bring my way, Martin. Thank you so much.
Excellent. I'll have it in the comment area below. If you like the show, like it, share it, and let people know about it. And Wendy, this was fantastic. Thanks for taking the time for us to have this discussion.
Thank you again, Martin.